it's good for me and it's good for the world and it's good for everybody.
Find the people that roll up their sleeves, gets their nails dirty and get the job done, and stick with them.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to the First Friday. This is an event that will take place every month, and it's going to be bringing together people to talk about sustainability and corporate social responsibility, particularly obviously in relation to the environment and to the existential problem we have of pollution, CO2, greenhouse gases, ecological destruction, wildlife destruction, wetlands and peatlands destruction, which is all leading us in a very bad direction. So I brought one of the most amazing people I've met in my life around the issue of saving wildlife, saving the ecology of our beautiful country that we have the good fortune to live in. And this is Dr. Bool Smuts, who is, well, Bool, maybe you could introduce yourself a little and please tell our guests here.
Thank you. I think how I'll do it is just tell you a little bit of a story and some thoughts, and then we'll get on to what we do. You know, if you think the economy is more important than the environment, you should try counting your money while you hold your breath. Those are the words of Professor McPherson. And it really strikes me every time I come into Cape Town, and the closer you get to the apron of the mountain, the vulgarity of some of the opulence that you see. I can't help but noticing young people driving million rand, 2 million rand cars and be revolted by it. So I'm here today really to discuss what my perspectives are on the crisis we're facing and what can be done about it and what your roles in it needs to be. And frankly, we're faced with both a social, political and environmental existential crisis at this time. And if you don't believe it, I would encourage you to follow the science and the data that is pointing in that direction. I'm not here to placate corporate greenwashing, which is also pervasive, and where corporate social responsibility is just another word for marketing. I want to encourage people to do real work. And the cold facts are not comfortable. 50% of the Earth's habitable landscapes have been destroyed. 60% of our vertebrate species have been destroyed. Not are getting destroyed, have been destroyed. Between 80 and 90% of our freshwater resources have been destroyed or inextricably rendered useless for consumption. I was born in 1966, just short of 60 years old. When I was born, there were 3 billion people on Earth. Today, we're over 8 billion. And if you look around, everybody wants to live like Bill Gates. It can't hold. It's just not possible to hold. And the extent to which we as a species have destroyed habitats, have polluted the environment, have overconsumed, have added to climate change is astonishing. And how it consistently carries on in perpetuity is even more foolhardy. And I think as a society we've become ecologically illiterate. You know, we live on a rock that circles a star. And as far as we know, it is the only place that harbors life. We may be proven wrong in time, but at this stage, it's the only place that harbors life. And that life relies on four very important ecological processes. Stuff we all learned in our junior grades at school. And that is that there's a critical energy cycle that makes this all happen. And that is free radiant energy that reaches us from the star that we circumnavigate. And through the miracle of photosynthesis, we capture that energy and convert it into chemical energy. And that's a critical step for life to exist. And it sustains us all. And then our bodies are made up of substance, stardust, elements and compounds, which has to cycle. When the day we die, that cycles back into a nutrient cycle, and all the processes we involved with involves that nutrient cycle. And then the third cycle is that of water. We've got this compound which we're picking up on some other extraterrestrial bodies in the heavens, but essentially, for all we know, it's the only rock that harbors that compound of water, which our bodies need to exist. For life to exist, there needs to be water. So those three important, critical cycles on Earth we rely on. We only exist because they are there, and what holds them together is this ethereal concept of biodiversity, the multitude of life that holds those three cycles together. And what we as a species are doing is single-handedly, inextricably destroying each one of those, whether it be in the habitats we destroy, whether it be the water bodies we destroy, the pollution we add to those cycles, and the resultant climate change that takes place. We're the only species that accumulates more than what we need. Think about that. There are no other species that do that. And in that very feature lies our own downfall. We might enjoy it today, whether we live in Constantia or in Khayelitsha. Our consumption might enjoy that today. But I can guarantee you it's that accumulation that will eventually destroy us as a species. And that's where we're at. And that's what I mean when we say we at an ecological precipice. And we need to elect whether we're going over it or we're going to step back from it. And that really is what the discussion is today. And our society has been designed to commoditize and accumulate. And we have used the structures of our laws to enable us to do that. As biased as they are and as entitled as they make us feel. So it leads to the inextricable destruction that we see, habitats, water bodies, life forms, our climates. And when these things happen together and in the same place, they have got a compounding effect. And that's what we're seeing as we move along. And it was for me so noticeable that just driving in today, thinking about what I wanted to say here today, and driving past Khayelitsha and Blue Downs and this open sewer called the Black River. And it just struck me that it's the poor that carry the disproportionate consequences of that destruction. And so environmental justice and social justice are inextricably linked. And I think we as advocates, or those who want to join the campaign, have to take that issue on board, and we need to fight that because that injustice and that entitlement that leads to these things is the core of our work. So it sounds dismal, and it is dismal, but it's not hopeless. And that really is where we need to get together. And, each and every one of us in our own lives can make changes. We can make better choices. We can accumulate and consume less. And we can participate. And I think what the discussion really on these dialogues, in my perspective, is that we need to enable those willing to stand up and fight. And is really how we need to galvanize this battle ahead. And it's about sometimes not what you do, but it's the power you give somebody else to do. And I guess that is where the activist meets the financier, because maybe it's not in the power or in the interest of the financier to actually do the work, but it's in their power to enable. And that really, I think, is what the discussion is. Coming back to your question, is to introduce myself. We work through an organization called the Landmark Foundation. I think the way I characterize ourselves is we're certainly brave, we certainly are resolute, and we have elected to bring our contribution in the sense of biodiversity, and particularly human-wildlife conflicts, and specifically with leopard conservation, which is the last remaining top carnivore in our region, Eastern, Western, Northern Capes. And we try and bring our influence in that field. And Landmark also does habitat restoration, particularly issues around rewilding, and we put a lot of effort into environmental education efforts, and then of course we have become latterly quite known in the whole debate around environmental governance and biodiversity governance. So for our leopard work, we, for the last 20 years, have been able and privileged, I have to say, to be able to rescue 73 leopards from certain demise. And if you consider that the Western Cape has only got 500 adult leopards left, and the Eastern Cape 400, we don't know what the Northern Cape's population is. That is a significant contribution to the species conservation. But those interactions have given us opportunity to take a deep dive into the research around leopards and understanding the dynamics, the species dynamics, the individual dynamics, the dynamics between farmer and leopard, between policymaker and governance agent and leopards. And I think that's provided a great contribution towards leopards. I think it's probably the largest leopard conservation research program in the world today. And it's been a joy and a lot of heartache that goes with it. But that's what it's been. And we certainly work to use those opportunities to educate, recognizing that adults don't easily educate themselves, but it's the youth that we put a lot of effort into. We also try and gain extra habitat for the species. We have a very active advocacy campaign, and I think we've become known as an organization that's really questioned the structures of our laws. And I always say to people, we sit with a Roman problem, because we inherited our laws from Roman times, and it was the Romans who created the legal construct by which we own things. And we talk about owning your dog. It's property, and that comes from Roman times. And it's quite striking if you look at traditional societies the world over, possibly with the exception of the Aborigines in Australia. There is no traditional society that I know of that destroyed their environments. It is something that came with the economic model created in Western society. The ownership of items, even wildlife items, and that I believe has led to its commoditization, which I believe has led to its overconsumption and destruction. And it applies to environmental assets like land as well. So we've questioned that. We've embarked upon litigation to exert. Animals have no rights. The environment have no rights in this country, but people have. And that's the strength of our Constitution, is that we've given people explicit rights. But often those things are only on paper. You know, we all celebrated the fact we've got a Bill of Rights, but people's rights were trampled on. Your right to housing, your right to healthcare, to education were trampled on. And why? Because people never exerted their rights. A right on paper is as good as the paper it's written on until you exert it. So what we decided is we targeted certain human rights that attach to it human obligations, and we exerted those through the courts. We are awaiting a constitutional court judgment on the freedom of expression. We won cases on the right to access to information. We failed, although it was only a partial fail, on the right to fair administration, insofar as they relate to the species we focus on. And so there can be many battles for the climate change that people have not embarked upon. Just last week, another entity brought a case against government around the overfishing that's resulting in penguins disappearing. Again, it's a rights-based issue that you need to exert, and we believe that civil action needs to come from civil society. So, taking from that, and we've been successful in some things and failed in others, but that's the approach we have taken. So the biodiversity governance, using our information, a science-based approach to advocacy as an education tool, try and expanding habitats that are friendly to rewilding and giving coexistence to animals, and then of course using a specific species that a lot of people have identity with as a tool. So at the end of this, what does that mean for you? I think what each individual, and then by extension organization or company or corporate, has to decide is, where do you want to put your energy? What is your job? If you are here to placate storytellers and people that do your marketing for you, I'm certainly the wrong person to speak to you, because I think you're just wasting everybody's time. I'd like to say that you need to define what your job is in the environmental field, and it may be from the musicians amongst us, the people with technological skills, the filmmakers, the artists, the lawyers. There may be different roles, and there are different roles because we're dealing in complexity. Find that role, find it, and make it your job. And what I always say is, a job is not done only for 3 reasons. There can be no other reason why a job is not done. The first one is, you don't have the knowledge to apply to the job. In that case, educate yourself. And if you're a corporate, buy in the knowledge. There are people with the knowledge. The second issue is you don't have the tools to do the job. Well, get the tools to do the job, and often you can buy the tools. So if you're corporate, help those that are doing it. Get the tools. Give them the money to do the job. And the third, probably the most important one, is you need the resolve to do the job. So it's the knowledge, the tools, and the resolve. And make sure that you bring that resolve to it. And my advice to corporates is find those mavericks and find those misfits that see the problem, because they are the ones that change the world. Do not go to the organization that provides you a glossy magazine. Find the people that roll up their sleeves, gets their nails dirty, and get the job done, and stick with them. So become a conviction funder, because I think it's in that conviction that you're willing to step through the difficulties that will inevitably be there, and stick with those entities that are prepared to do that work. You know, I often ask myself, why the hell am I doing this? Because there's an easier job to be had, and maybe I can also drive a 1 million rand car. But you know what it's about? It's about mourning. When somebody dies and you mourn, what is that? Mourning is just love not having a place to go to. And for us as an organization, for myself, that's what this is about, is mourning the loss that we see in the environment from day to day. But the issue is, I think, that there are bits to put together. And while there's still bits to put together to solve a problem, I think that's what we must do. Be it Climate Action Now, be it Landmark Foundation, or whatever other organization or person or people that are working towards some sort of end to put those bits together. My appeal to you is support them, because I think they are our only hope. We can't rely on government to do it. Only this last week, Cyril Ramaphosa says communities have had the Rembrandts. He was referring to wildlife, and he called them Rembrandts in the environment. It's now their time to go and utilize that. I was just gobsmacked by that statement, because the point about Rembrandt is that it's irreplaceable. Somehow our president didn't get the notion that what he's talking about and telling people go and utilize and make gay meat out of it is irreplaceable. Once it's gone, it's gone. So support the people that put the bits together. That's it.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Bool. Yeah, so it's a big question is, how do we engage people in a way that's going to be the most effective in actually saving ourselves, saving our souls, and saving all the land and the wildlife that we're so busy destroying, and the waterways and the seas and the oceans. So, I get depressed at least 3 times a day, when I see the evidence of what's going on. And then I get hope when I meet somebody like you, and I meet volunteers, I meet artists and people who actually care and are doing a great job. But I think the idea for this First Fridays came from really a desire to put the people together in a room that actually have the resources to make a difference, to fund good organizations, people, etc. And that's now increasingly meant to be part of their job and their budget and their bottom line. And coming from Ireland, coming from Europe as I do, and falling in love with South Africa as I have done, and now living here, I have an outsider's view, and I think that this country has so much potential. I'm not the first. Funnily enough, this morning I had tea in the Rhodes Museum in Musenberg, a character I can't stand, historically, of course, being Irish, but they all have the same idea. This is a great country, we can do great, but actually we've run out of time, as you said. We're in a point now is we don't have the luxury of another few hundred years, to exploit the earth and the people, and particularly the people as well. So First Fridays is really about bringing the people with the resources, and who are also some of the biggest polluters, which is the other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, increasingly in Europe, it's the polluter pays, at least in the legislation. But of course, there's lots of slippery ways of getting out of things, as we know, thinking of politicians in America, etc. So really, the First Fridays is an occasion once a month where we can invite a corporate or an industry, be it tourism, be it banking, be it construction, be it transport, be it farming, be it any one of and all of these industries that are critically important to this area of the world, and without which people would be without jobs and without income and without a livelihood. So I believe that there's a lot of good people in the industry who have jobs as sustainability managers, who have jobs as corporate social responsibility directors, etc. And I think there's a growing awareness within corporations that their own existence is now in question, because they can't sell anything to people who are starving or rioting because there isn't enough food. And we're all, I can't remember which of the French philosophers or whoever said it was, we're only 3 meals away from anarchy. I mean, if there wasn't, nobody ate for 24 hours because there was no food, I can tell you there will be riots. Now we're heading that direction, the way things are going, and particularly, as you mentioned, the poverty that's in this country, and the contrast between Kailicha and Camps Bay, for example. I mean, it's shocking as an outsider. We have poverty in Ireland too, but it's not on the same scale. And we're a poor country, and we're a country that was colonized. So as an Irishman coming here, I see this is a country that I'm even more passionate about than my own now, because I see the potential, and I see the potential for change. But bringing the people together in a room and out of their offices and out of their silos, and actually getting them to share and talk together, is what we hope to achieve with these First Friday events. So it might start off with one industry or one company. It could be Investec, or it could be Old Mutual, or it could be Coca-Cola, or whoever. And they all have very good, hard-working sustainability people. Let's get them into a room where they can share that, what they're doing as a corporation and as an organization. And then how are they educating their own colleagues, their own staff, their own community? And that's a critical piece, because for any of these organizations to succeed in their net zero carbon or whatever, they're getting rid of plastic, as in Coca-Cola, etc., reducing that, water is important, and so on. Whatever their goals are, that they can share that, and then how are they getting there? And then I believe that if we bring people together from different industries, things can move faster, because we have the understanding, where they have the opportunity to work together and get out of their silos and realize that, what an existential problem this is. Recently I was looking at some of the quotes from some speakers at a big sustainability conference in the UK, and somebody from Pernod Ricard said, to succeed in the sustainability field, to make things happen, we have to work together. We all win or lose this race together. And that struck me, because it's true. Like, we're all going to win or lose this race about our own existence. And the planet will survive, we won't. We'll be that species, we'll be the dinosaurs, and a certain amount of animals and ants might survive by the way it's going, but we're certainly not going to. So what are we going to do about this? And then, somebody from Responsible 100, Michael Solomon, was saying, it's about having honest conversations. And, I loved what you said there, because there's too much greenwashing going on. There's too many conversations about how do we make ourselves look good by sticking a green label, literally, on our product when it's not actually honest. So we need to be honest and have honest conversations. And we need to create a safe space where we can be honest, outside of that sort of corporate world. So it's very hard for a sustainability manager to sit in their office in town and tell, their senior manager that they're actually destroying the river down the road, or that their output from their factory is actually killing 200 people a year from toxic waste or whatever. It's very hard for them to be honest with those people. So maybe we can create a space where people can be honest and can actually really start to engage as human beings, not as robots in a corporate world that are just having to tick the boxes. And then head of responsible business with actually Fujitsu, Sarah Jane Littleford, she was talking about the collaborative element that needs to be on a long-term basis and not a short-term. The problem with the politicians and the corporates is they're just looking at the next election, the next quarter, the next annual returns, and so they're all planning for the short-term gain and losing in the long term. So I think there are three things that I would like to point out. So, Climate Actions Now, it's an organization I helped found, and now we're engaged in South Africa, trying to help organizations like yours, and trying to help young artists, trying to help bring awareness using music as a way to engage with people in a nice way, to get a message across. And we believe that the power of music, and of course in South Africa, if you want any movement going, you need a beat, and you need something that people can actually move to. And so I think bringing music and art into this mission around saving our own existence is something that maybe makes it more palatable, easier to swallow. The hard news is that we all have to change. We have to change so many things we do and how we live. And we've got a very short period of time to do this in. So getting back to, this Can First Fridays. So from September 2024, we're inviting organizations to take over this wonderful space here, which is in the Bailey. It's on Bree Street, which is, one of the nicest, most celebrated streets in Cape Town. And we're giving a beautiful space that's actually, this whole space is actually going to be refurbished completely over the next few months. And we're going to have a dedicated space here once a month on a Friday, 3 o'clock, to bring people together to talk honestly about the issues, to see how we can help each other save ourselves and our children and our pets and our animals and our forests and everything else that we need to do in our waterways. So I suppose this is an appeal to people in the corporate sector who actually want to be honest and actually want to save their own jobs and their own children and their own corporation. And this is just a place where we can help start something, because nobody else is doing this. I don't know anyone who's doing what we're proposing to do. And it's really just about trying to work out how we can move together to solve the problem. So Climate Actions Now is about finding solutions and helping others who are providing solutions, like Landmark is, not only in leopards but also in the amazing work you've done in restoring wetlands and in cleaning away invasive species of trees and that were destroying the good land that you have the privilege to look after in Riversdale. And so this is a critical point in all of our lives. We've got two choices. Either we do something about it or we don't. Now, we're okay, because by the time, by the time we've parted this mortal coil, so we're okay. So why are we doing this, Bool? I mean, we could be actually sitting on the beach right now. Why are we doing this? Because we actually passionately want to help save everything that we cherish, and that's what gets us going and keeps us going all day. And really, our mission is to engage everybody in the same way, and it's a joyous thing. So I don't see that this idea that it's all sackcloth and we're all going to have to suffer. No, we can make music about it. We can make dance about it. We can enjoy turning things towards a green economy, because there's a huge amount of jobs and wealth available. There's a lot of unemployment, huge, tragic amount of unemployment in this country, particularly in the townships and in the underserved communities, who suffer because of poverty, lack of education, facilities, everything else, which is an absolute scandal, right? But I believe that we can change things in the next 10 years. We can be growing hemp and building hemp houses rather than corrugated metal shacks that are not fit for purpose for anything. We can do this, and we can employ people, and that needs funding, and the corporates are there to do it. The building trades, cement is the most polluting. It's responsible for 30% of the pollution in the world at the moment. The fashion industry, all that. Every industry is responsible for its own bit, transport, etc. They're the people who need to turn some of their profits and some of their resources towards the green economy. And I believe if we do that, that actually will create a huge amount of new wealth and revolutionize the way we live. And it's not the GDP that's important, is are we living healthily and are we happy, rather than are we increasing our gross domestic product, which is completely insane. We can't keep on adding 5% to the consumption every year, because that's what gets us to where we are now. We need to go the reverse. So getting back to First Fridays, so can First Fridays, it's for corporates to take the advantage of coming to a lovely space that's neutral, that's open, that's honest, and that they can share what they're doing and help us all to actually be enlightened and get on this task together in a way that's acceptable and that's good, but we need to do it now. So that's why it's climate actions, and it's not just one action, it's actions now. It's not tomorrow, it's yesterday, Mr. President, yesterday. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert.
Sure, questions and answers. Sorry, I forgot about that.
Just since I both of you together, I mean, you touched on something interesting when you say that why are you doing this in your age, in your career level, and so forth? Why are you doing it? I would like to know, firstly with you, Bool. Okay, so we've heard you. You've spoken. For a young person who's heard this, I mean, we've heard it enough. We've seen it on TikTok. It's printed in schools. Where do we start? Because there's a disconnect between someone who is on the ground, the Kayanisha, facing the impacts of what you're speaking about, and yourself who is in a position where you are actively addressing. And it seems to me like as you're mentioning about this disconnect between the corporate and the actual actions that need to take place, there's also the disconnect between the doers and the actual impact. What's your feeling about that, and how do we resolve something like that?
I think the first step is really all the stuff we touched, is develop your resolve. Find your job in this. Because it's so complex, not necessarily complicated, just complex. There are so many impacts, whether they be from pollution to water issues to community safety to there are a multitude of ills that have come with this overconsumption and greed and entitlement. You cannot be expected, no person, no collective of persons can be expected to deal with all of those issues. Find the issue that shakes your boots, gets you out of bed in the morning, and gets you to be doing it when it's the hardest thing in the world to do. Find that issue and get involved. Now, that's where the problem comes, and my particular disdain goes to the millions upon millions of rands that get poured into marketing campaigns that masquerade as corporate social responsibility. Because that is just a waste and it's a fraud. And that's why I say, find your maverick, find your misfit, but find that person that actually honestly addresses honest issues. And that's, we've got to find a better mechanism by which those people get resourced. Because as I said, it's knowledge, it's tools, and it's resolve. Those are the only three things you need. And often the people with resolve and knowledge are not the people with the tools. And perhaps that's what the corporates can help with. And if this conversation then leads to identifying some of those entities, I think that would be helpful. But you've got to develop the resolve throughout, from the activist to the corporate sitting on a leather-clad chair. That resolve has got to be cultivated, and it's difficult. Spent 20 years mostly failing at it.
Answer that, because that misconception or that greenwashing, it also paints a picture that has a ripple effect. For example, in famous food brands would perhaps say, if you buy this piece of chicken, this fried chicken, X amount percentage goes towards the community. And I think, whereas that's a great attempt and a great effort, there's so much that's missed in the engagement of making this connection between the reality of those who are impacted and those who are going to witness a reform. And so I think that would result in, I think, that classic. Yeah, Rob, I'll add one question for you. In your years of experience, you could also be chilling somewhere, having a good time. Why, apart from the urgency, but what have you seen in young people, particularly in arts and in culture, that gives you the hope to say that this is scalable, that this is something that corporate social investment can get involved into, for example, and how would it connect to what we just mentioned, assisting the corporate social responsibility side to tell a better story?
Okay, well, on a personal basis I've always been passionate about music. I've been aware of the destruction of rainforests since I hitchhiked around South America in the 70s. And funny enough, at the time, I was horrified about how much was being destroyed. But since that time, more than half of the rainforests in Brazil and in Paraguay and Colombia, etc., has been destroyed. Doesn't exist anymore. And I was worried about it in 73 and 76, but actually that doesn't exist and you can't grow that back again easy. So what gets me is a few things. One is, it gives me a good reason at this point in my life, past 70, to actually do something. And quite frankly, I'll be bored out of my tree sitting on a beach, no matter where it is, or anything else. So, and I love people, and I love working with young people in particular, because they're not dumbed down yet. They haven't been destroyed. And, you know, there's a hope, and there's a future, and there's passion, and there's fun. So I do it for all of those reasons. I do it, you know, because it's also actually good for me. It's positively selfish, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, because it makes me feel as though at the age of 70-something, I'm doing something that's worthwhile. And it gets me out of my lazy couch and out of my lazy bed, because there's an urgency in it, because there's a timeline. We've got 10 years maybe, if we're lucky, before it's just too late. You know, before the oceans change their direction and Ireland is frozen 6 months of the year, you know, and Cape Town is in a drought, that, you know, whatever. And that's it, really. It's good, it's fun, it's meaningful, and it's what I love. Like music, working with young people, helping them be creative, finding people with little or no hope, and helping them get to where they have a career and income and a potential to change the world. That's what makes me happy. And it's sharing, maybe it's the empath in me, but it's sharing the joy and the love. Absolutely the love. The love I get through working with young people, and sometimes the stress and there's two sides to everything, you know. It's not all a cakewalk, you know. It's like half the things don't work, and relationships are difficult, and people have issues, and we all have our problems. But overall, the simple answer is, because if you put it all into one word, because it's good for me, and it's good for the world, and it's good for everybody. And when I think that the only thing that makes sense is when everybody's winning. You know, this thing is the business world, you know, and I've existed in that world for too long, is the only deals that work is when everybody's winning. And I think with the climate issue is everybody can win with this. Their own existential existence, their own existence is what we need to win, and to protect it for the future, for the children that are yet to come. And if we don't do that, we don't deserve this planet. You know, we're better off being wiped out and let something else evolve that might actually do a better job. So that's it. All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.